because once we get through this, I'm going to be ahead of everyone. And if we don't get through this, then I've no regrets. It's becoming increasingly difficult to stay optimistic in the world we live in. I'm not wearing this to be pretentious, by the way. It's freezing. When I was a kid, I saw the rise of social media, and I could see everyone could see that was going to be massive, and it is. But people in my position, my age, 17, a young, I don't like calling myself a teenager, but I suppose I am. We couldn't really do much. When Bitcoin, if anyone was on the internet, you heard people talking about Bitcoin like 2016. Obviously, it was 2010-ish when Bitcoin first started. But anyone around my age, we would have heard of Bitcoin when we were kids, but we couldn't really do anything. And if I was 5 years older and I was my age then I could have put money in, and I'd be doing quite well now, and have a lot more. It's a lot easier to be optimistic when you've got money, but when you're in the position that I'm in, where you've not got the millions that everyone's showing off right now, you're at the start of the journey. You're not midway through the journey. You've not got lucky on a course where you've been scamming people to spend thousands on a fucking WhatsApp group. You know, when you don't have the money and you don't have the assets and connections, and you're at the start of the journey, you know, so to speak. Whoa. Not mean to do that. When you're at the start of the journey, so to speak, it's very difficult to stay optimistic. I've got some points down that I wanted to quickly go over. No one wants to stay in the UK. Everyone I speak to, in the line of work I do in marketing, I do branding, video production, logo designing, and general digital marketing, the creative side, not digital marketing where they run Google ads for you and stuff, like the creative side of marketing and campaigns for companies. And the companies that I get to work with or see that I know are doing well and are expanding and putting a lot of money, they're putting monies in certain places. There's a trend I've noticed, and I'm not going to go into it too much because obviously that's private information, but the direction that I can see companies going through the work I'm doing are only the companies that have existed for a very long time and have a lot of spare cash. The smaller businesses, the sort of one-man band, a few smaller team businesses, they're the ones where you can very clear, like a lot of the companies in the gym industry, you can just project it. You can see that they're not going to survive much longer. And I'm not saying that that's because of whatever's going on in the world. I'm just saying, like, the companies I see optimism in and I see a future in are the companies that have existed for a long time. Another point I've written down is just the economy is absolutely fucked. Mishandling during COVID. Just general mishandling of finances in both America and the UK for a very long time. I mean, you can trace it back a very long time, and it draws comparisons to the Israel-Palestine situation. There's no one event. Both sides will latch onto events to say when this ordeal happened, but it's been going longer than we can even really understand. And I think it's the same with the economy. It's been a consistent downfall since, I suppose, America coming off the gold standard, but I'm sure there'll be people who will say, oh, well, this happened and there was this. There's so many things that have gone wrong that shouldn't have, that we're now in a position where 10 years ago, maybe I'm wrong, I was, 7? So I couldn't say, but you can look online and you can do your research and you can speak to other people, and things seemed better. The future seemed brighter 10 years ago than what it does now in an economic sense. Now, of course, there's massive opportunities like Bitcoin, and I know a handful of people that have a healthy amount of money in Bitcoin, and they're projecting this year and definitely next year to be interesting for housing markets and Bitcoin, and it'll be interesting. And I'm lucky enough where I've been living frugally enough to save my paycheck. I'm still in work, and any money I've made on the side from offering my services, where I don't have loads to play with, but in a situation where I could double my money or triple my money, I'd be doing quite well. I don't mean like I won't be able to move out of my house or anything. I won't be able to, do anything like that, but I'd be in a good position if I could double my money or triple my money, which I will. These are just points I've written down. I'm not going to go too deep into everything because I don't want this to be, how awful the world is and let's say all be depressed and cry about it. The mainstream media lies and subversion, and government issues as well with subversion. I mean, I've always been interested in politics and news since being a little kid. It's genuinely fascinated me all my life. So I've always, since being a little kid, it's always something I've been I've known a lot about of how the media subvert people. You can go back to Yuri Bezmenov, who was a former KGB agent who would go and do these lectures, and you can still find the videos online. I'll maybe try and link some down below. You can go and watch. Actually, no, I won't do that because that kind of defeats the point of the video, and it'll make you a lot more paranoid about the way the world's going. But about how Marxist ideologies sort of... I'm not going to go too deep into it because I can see myself talking for the next hour about it, but there was certain people involved in certain campaigns to push certain countries and certain societies in a certain direction for certain reasons. You've got stuff like linking to the New World Order, and that was a crazy conspiracist Alex Jones talking point, and now the New World Order is an official talking point of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab not only tweeted, but said in a video that you will own nothing by 2030 and you'll enjoy it. You've got these like James Bond villain-esque characters saying that the world's going to be completely changed. You've got Hawaii, the very suspicious wildfires. Everyone else's houses were completely decimated in Hawaii, and you know, electronics and powers were cut down, and the police blocked people from escaping. But now it's interesting to see that there is the fact that a lot of the rich people there, the houses were untouched. Now, obviously, I'm sure they had defence mechanisms, but it's interesting that in both New Zealand and Hawaii, especially after these fires, there's a bunch of billionaires that have bought up property. Mark Zuckerberg's got a massive bunker that he just built in Hawaii, and it's interesting that everyone's building doomsday bunkers. There's been wars, you know, that have been going on for ages, that we like to separate world events, or World War, that was just something that happened ages ago, and now we have Russia and Ukraine. It's a new war. It's all Putin invaded and all this. People don't understand, even Palestine and Israel, they don't understand that that's been a religious battle that's been going on for like 1,000 years. That's been going on before America even was a thought. Christopher Columbus wasn't even born at the time when Israel and Palestine, the battles of them nations, and the Muslims and the Jews were going on. But we like to connect all these, separate all these things. But when we look at, you know, Athens and Greece, Athens and Sparta in Greece, and we look at the Peloponnesian War and all the different battles and the different changes of leadership and democracy there, we sort of condense it to this one big event. We talk about ancient Greece as this just one big event. The fall of Rome did not happen in a few years. It happened over hundreds of years, and we can point at all these things. And I really do feel like we're in a point of, well, we look at all these separate events, but in 200 years, we're going to be like, right, America was founded, and then there was a war, and then America was a superpower, and then there was Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then the World War, and there was the domino event of things that happened, America coming off the gold standard. But we sort of see these things as separate events, especially because of how information is now. The news is different every day. It used to be, you get your newspaper every day, and there'd be developing stories. We don't really see many developing stories. Everything's brand new. Everything's different. There's always a new take. But in reality, this has all just been one big event that's going in a certain direction. This year, there is 45% of the world's population are going to be in general elections, which is, so like most democratic countries are having elections this year, and that's another thing. Shit's gonna go down this year. It is. Now that doesn't mean that we're all gonna die or anything, but there's gonna be some real big changes happening this year because of that. There are too many countries where power shifts are happening, what certain elite members of society, certain superpowers in the world don't want to happen. And just the general media consensus of that doom's coming. I don't doubt there's going to be difficult times. I think it's the first generation in a long time that haven't had a hopeful future ahead of them. Unless you've become lucky, or you've worked really hard in a business for a certain period of time and you've got that money and you know that you're dynamic. I can't. If I don't turn up to work for a month, I have no money. Now, I'm very frugal with my money, so I know I could last a decent amount of time. I still live at home, so that helps. I've set my life up over the last year in a way where it's benefiting me rather than I'm battling against life and going out and drinking. I don't do any of that. I don't go out. I cut a lot of friends off because it's just more excuses to spend money and put your head in the wrong place. And I know I could survive for a very long time with the money I've saved, the money I've put in certain places. It's not much money, but like I said, if in a situation where I could double, triple, quadruple it in a big bull run of, say, Bitcoin, for example, or Ethereum, or Solana's, whatever, I know I'd make a decent amount of money and I'd be in a much better position because I've managed to save that money. But I've not got millions. I'm not making 10k a month. I'm not making 100k a month. You know, I'm not making millions a month. That isn't happening. I don't have that money. And alongside that money, you have experience of life, understanding how things work a bit better. I can read all the books. I've been reading books and podcasts and everything about how the world and system and the economy works since I was a little kid. But I'll tell you, nothing compares to life experience. I've learnt more being in work over the last 6 months, being around real people who run real businesses that have real issues, than reading books from successful people. Life experience will trump any book, and I genuinely do believe that. You can read as many books as you want, but unless you experience things in real life, you can research the best workout plans. You know, I did that on the first year of going to the gym, trying to do it, and then I just sort of give up. I was like, well, I might as well just go to the gym and work it out myself, and I have. And now I can go back and do my research because I understand how it works, but that life experience is so important. And on top of that, having, you know, money and assets and that life experience, what comes along that is with friends in certain industries, friends with different industries, friends with different knowledge. You tend to congregate around the same sort of people as you. So if you're, for example, a famous basketball player, an ultra successful basketball player, your friends may not be basketball players, but your friends are also going to be successful in their industry because you're like-minded. We can lie and pretend to be friends with certain people. Anyone that went through the British school system will perfectly understand this. Well, we can be friends with people we don't actually like because it's better than being left on our own, whatever. But eventually, especially when everyone leaves high school and they go to college and there's less pressure on you to be in a group, you go down the path of least resistance to the people you feel the most comfortable with. And generally, as they say, is you tend to congregate around the people that match your intelligence. So if you've been in business for 10 years, you've made a few million, it's in a bank account somewhere, you've got assets here, maybe you've not got a million cash, but you've amassed £1 million, maybe including your business's net worth, you're going to have some friends that have got money as well, who are like-minded, who are going to be talking about things. You've got that sort of like, right, if the world does go down, we could combine our money and do something and maybe look after ourselves, go to a different country. I can't do that, and so many of us can't. And it's not like we don't want to. We're not in the band of people that are lazy. We are all working towards something, day and night, sacrificing things that everyone else is doing in our lives to actually work towards something. But, you know, we're not there yet. And the future is not bright. It doesn't seem, when you're in my position and you're trying to climb the rungs, you're trying to get on the ladder, the future isn't as bright. When you're already halfway up the ladder, it's going to be difficult, but you've got more to play with. You've got more connections, you've got more people, you've had more life experience. Now that was about 15 minutes or so. I'm probably end up cutting it down just for the sake of people being able to actually listen to this properly without getting too depressed. But it's all well and good me sitting here saying all the issues in the world, what's going on, and, you know, the future isn't as bright as we'd like it to be necessarily. And I don't like being conspiratorial, but I think with my knowledge of how mainstream media work and government subversion works, and I'm not saying any specific government's targeting the people or trying to subvert us, I'm just saying in general, the media have financial interest and everything's profit-based. So I tend not to anymore anyway get too conspiratorial, because once you have a bit of life experience and you see people and how they operate with their businesses, no one's really crazy. It's all just profits. Like most things that we see that we think are really bad, for example, America invading certain countries that they probably shouldn't have done, overthrowing certain governments in South America, in the Middle East, whatever. There is a very obvious profit motive in that. And I think that it's also very, very profitable not only to stoke on war and impending doom, but to keep people in this fearful state. I'm not saying that, fucking, I don't know, some member of the government has gone to the media apparatus in the UK and America and said, right, make everyone's shit scared. Maybe. But it does seem that way. It sounds stupid to say, but the world isn't as bad. Things aren't as bad as how we see them, and things aren't as good as how we see them, generally speaking. As they say, there's three sides to a story. There's one person's side, there's the other, and then there's the truth. And the truth, very rarely you'll be able to get the 100% truth, even from people that you would trust to give information and to commentate on the current situation of the world. Because even the people that are involved in these certain things like the wars, even they're not going to tell the truth. The actual information that we're getting about these situations, the actual hard facts about these situations, cutting out the mainstream sort of headlines, if it bleeds, it leads sort of thing, even that's not completely true. Most of that's lies, and there's, certain profit motives behind that. I made a vow to myself about a month ago that I wasn't going to engage in world news anymore. Because I could feel myself becoming demotivated. I was sort of constantly being like, is there any point in me doing this business, doing this research, working on this, doing this for this client, if everything's just going to collapse? And it's this it is an emotional thing. It's not logical. It isn't logical. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some, proper cold, clean person. It is an emotional response. The logical response is obviously, nothing you can do about it. But the emotional response is everything's going to collapse, and what's the point of even doing it? And it's hard because all you hear, even when I made that vow, and I was like, right, I'm not going to watch podcasts with the news. I'm just going to listen to all the stuff that interests me, read books about things I care about, and just work on the things that I'm good at, keep improving my skills, getting fitter and better. And it still finds its way to creep into your life. I mean, I was literally watching a documentary, an older documentary, around my missus' house yesterday. I was working on a personal project of mine, a business that I'm started. And she had a documentary on a computer while I was in bed. And then I was like, right, it was about the octopus murders and CIA and murdering people. I was like, right, let's not. This is not the best thing to listen to before you go to bed. It just bugs with your head a bit. So I was like, just go on YouTube, find a little podcast or some like documentary about like, I don't know, some historical figure. And then I saw about a terror attack in Russia. It was literally breaking news. It had just been released. The video was like an hour old. The bodies weren't even cold yet when I saw these videos of the shooting in Russia. And I have my opinions on the situation. I think it smells of American, but I won't go into that too much. And, obviously it's a fucking tragedy. And I was journaling after watching them, and I was like, I need to do this video because it's really just cemented it in my head of how the world is going to shit, but is it? Is it certain false flags or certain people in certain areas of the world, I'm trying to be careful with how I phrase this, in certain positions of power trying to demotivate? It feels like it's one after the other of event that happens in the world. Just one thing happens that's awful, and the next thing, and that's been going on for so long, and it's mind-numbing. I think, again, I don't want this to be about how depressing the world is. I do want to provide some sort of value. This is an open conversation. I'd really like people to talk about this and getting with a comment or get in touch somehow through my website or through my email or social media. Not really on social media, but you can, or just start a conversation, because it's something that I think a lot of people are struggling with. And I've seen people like Patrick Bet-David talking about, the future is bright. He's got a new merch line. And I think they're in industries where they sort of need people to be optimistic. I mean, Patrick Bet-David is a business guy. That's his sort of thing. It's business, it's politics, it's hope for the future. And we live in a world where everyone doesn't really have much faith in the system anymore. There's very minimal faith in anything. And I think it's a wise business choice to promote the future is bright thing, it works for him. So, and then that's in my mind. It's like, is the future really bright, or is that just a marketing slogan so he doesn't lose his audience? So with Andrew Tate talking about on his mailing list, I still am subscribed to it. It is actually quite an informative mail list, and he's talking about saying the same thing. The future is bright. I think, like I said, I want to provide a bit of, as well as starting this conversation, I'd love to hear people's views and discuss this and sort of see how other people are seeing this from the perspective of someone that's not a multi-millionaire yet. But the thing that I journaled about a month or two ago was, it was really dawning on my head. I was like really just wanting, not give up, but I was like, what is the point in, so I could just be going getting pissed with all my old friends, you know, like the world's going to end anyway. Which I understand is a very, very emotional way to look at the world. I'm not denying that. But I remember the Stoic quote that I read in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's in my little bookshelf over there. And it is, I don't know the exact quote. I don't even know if it is Marcus Aurelius, to be honest. But that of which is not in your control is not of your concern. It just sort of pinged in my head. And I was like, that's it. That of which is not in your control is none of your concern. If I work towards my business and my health and fitness, and the world collapses and there's a war and there's bombs, which I don't think that'll happen here. Maybe it will. But okay, I get drafted, I get conscripted. Okay, so what? I'm still working towards a purpose. I'm still working towards what I wanted to do. And let's say I survive. We get through this, and I was working on a business, working on earning more money and building my assets and getting fitter and stronger and more knowledgeable and building life experience, and I managed to survive this situation. Then once we've got through all this bad stuff, I'm going to be ahead of everyone. I'm going to be so far ahead that I'm going to be unstoppable. And that I still have to remind myself, I still have to go for this and journal about it and sort of be like, look, you can't control what is going to go on. You can't decide, all right, well, I'm just going to feel better about this, because it is difficult. When you're in my position where you're on a wage, you're not ultra successful yet. You've not made money to go and put in certain positions, to move countries. I'm not dynamic. I have one passport. I could afford a flight. Don't get me wrong. I could 100% afford a flight to any country on earth. It'd have to be a cheaper flight if I was going to, I wouldn't be getting Emirates first class anywhere, but I know I could get a flight anywhere, but I won't be able to do much there. I could take my computer, I suppose, and try and start a business elsewhere, and it's something I've thought about. I mean, it's a possibility, but I'm not in the position of these ultra successful people yet, where I'm like, yeah, the world could collapse, but I can get a house here, I can build a bunker here, I can do this. Oh, I've got these friends in this place where they know that what's going to happen. They've got this protection in place. When you're in my position, in the position of many, many, many people like me, we're not as dynamic. We've not got to a point yet where we can do that. Taking away from this video, without it being a complete depressing, and I don't want anyone to feel, overly depressed, because it's not good. You need to be optimistic in business. You need to see, in times of crisis, you need to see the opportunity in that. And it's difficult, but you have to. I was watching a documentary the other day about John D. Rockefeller, and how there was a plethora of situations where most companies went. Now, I'm not saying he was the best of guys, but he was a man where when things were going shit and his business should have failed, he somehow managed to turn it to where it was the most lucrative opportunity of his life every single time. And that sort of helped me a bit. I was sort of like, well, if he managed to do that when he actually had a business that was going to fail, if everything goes to shit now, I don't really have much to lose. I've not got a massive business that's reliant. There's no employees. I don't have all these people that rely on me yet. But he managed in those situations to pull it out. So I'm sure I can. I'm not saying I am John D. Rockefeller, but yeah. There's not really much of an actionable step apart from, again, if you just keep working on the things that you know are good, going to the gym, eating well, focusing on diet, your mental and physical health, working on businesses, learning, not pissing about, actually getting work done, even if it's at a job, working up the career ladder, making sure you're stuffing as much money away as you can in the right places, then when this blows over and maybe things go good, which they eventually will go good. It's not going to be bad forever. Then you're going to be ahead of everyone else. Everyone else that fell for it, that were that mentally just give up because they thought there was no point. You're going to be so far ahead, and if things do go to shit and you don't survive, then what? You were living happily, you were living towards a purpose and working towards the things you wanted to be worked, and it didn't work out. So what? You weren't doing anything wrong, per se. So, I suppose that is the actionable step, but I'd like to hear people's opinions on it, because it's something that's been bugging me for a very long time about how the world is, and staying optimistic and not getting into the mental sort of trap of, oh, the world's going to end, what's the point, all this. It's very easy to do so. And it's the easier option to give up. It is. Anyone that goes to the gym knows, if you wake up feeling ill, tired, a bit achy, it's raining outside and you're a bit late waking up, you could go to the gym. You could just go and get a few sets in and you still bin. It's very easy, even though if you like the gym, just to be like, So, it's very easy just to be like, and it is, again, like I said, it's a very emotional response, but it's very easy to be like, the world's going to end, it doesn't matter anymore. But we're being tested. I think it's going to test a lot of people the next few years, and I'm going to keep working on what I'm working on, no matter what happens, because once we get through this, I'm going to be ahead of everyone, and if we don't get through this, then I've no regrets. So, it's going to be a very long video. I'll try and cut it down a bit. But yeah, that's about it.